My Father gave me, long before this civilization, gave me birth into that kingdom level above human, that kingdom of heaven, that kingdom of God. Planet Earth about to be recycled. Your only chance to survive. This is your chance. I'm here. I can take you out of here. I can lead you into that kingdom level above human. That can't happen unless you leave the human world that you're in and come and follow me.
As the autopsies continued in San Diego, California, one by one, families of the mass suicide victims made the journey they hoped they'd never have to make. Applewhite died along with his followers in the mass suicides, believed they would be transported to a happier world by a spacecraft they thought was trailing the Hale-Bopp comet.
Possibly one of the biggest cult stories in America, Heaven's Gate convinces members using a mix of Christianity, New Age, and ufology, with classic brainwashing and manipulation leading to the mass suicide of its members in 1997. Marshall H Applewhite, born in Texas 1931, had a religious upbringing, with his father being a Presbyterian minister. He also struggled with his sexual identity. Marshall would meet Bonnie Nettles in 1972 and spent a lot of time discussing mythicism. This was at a time when Marshall was severely depressed after his father's passing, and he found himself lost looking for answers. In search of meaning, he, along with his new friend Bonnie, concluded that they were the two endgame witnesses mentioned in Revelations 11, which states that the two witnesses in Revelation will have miraculous powers to occupy their message, and no one will ever be able to stop them in their work. Verse 5. 3.5 days later, however, God's two witnesses will be resurrected in full view of their enemies sent to heaven. This will lead to the creation of Heaven's Gate in 1974. In the mid-70s, they travelled recruiting members and hosting meetings. In August 1974, Applewhite was arrested in Arlington, Texas for failing to return a rental car and was extradited to Missouri, where he would spend 6 months in jail. During those 6 months, he further developed his theology. After jail, they soon attracted hundreds of members. They initially called themselves the Two, or Bo and Peep, claiming they were divine messengers with a unique role in humanity's salvation. Unlike other Christian cults, their central doctrine was a blend of Christian eschatology and science fiction, focusing on UFOs. Marshall also believed Jesus was an extraterrestrial who came to Earth to teach humanity how to transcend their physical bodies. He saw himself as the reincarnation of Jesus, returning to complete the work of spiritual revolution and help believers ascend to the next level, or heaven. Their followers became known as the Crew.
Planet Earth about to be recycled. Your only chance to survive or evacuate is to leave with us.
They saw themselves as representations from the next level, or the kingdom of heaven, which they believed was a physical place in outer space where highly evolved beings lived. According to them, to ascend to that realm, followers needed to sever all ties to their human existence, including family, personal identity, and material attachments. The group viewed their bodies as temporary vehicles that housed their souls, which would be transformed to a new, more advanced body in the afterlife. When Bonnie died of cancer in 1985, it contradicted the belief system of physical transformation through spacecraft to the next level. The group's doctrine was confounded because Nettles was chosen by the next level to be a messenger on Earth, yet her body had died instead of leaving physically to outer space. Their belief system was then revised to include the leaving of consciousness from the body as equivalent to leaving the Earth in a spacecraft. After Bonnie's death, the group lived in complete isolation from the outside world, making it easier to control the members with no influence from the outside world. They adopted a strict, highly regimented communal lifestyle where members, from their clothing to their diet, was controlled.
There was about 40 of us, and so we were divided into 3 shifts. 3 people shared a bed.
They even devised a system of changing names, each follower adopting a new name that ended with ODY to signify that they were no longer tied to their earthly identities. Members had to follow strict rules. They dressed in unisex clothing in an attempt to remove any feeling of individuality. They were convinced separation from families was necessary for their spiritual advancement, causing severe emotional distress and isolation. Some families of cult members tried to reach out, but communication was cut off. Members of Heaven's Gate were required to live ascetic lives. They were celibate, often abstaining from sex or any expression of sexuality, including masturbation. Applewhite saw human sexual desires as a distraction from spiritual journey. Some male members, including Applewhite, even underwent voluntary castration to remove sexual temptation.
They desired to have their vehicles neutered, and I'm one of those students that did that. And I can't tell you how free that has made me feel. I've been here long enough from the time I had that operation to know the freedom that it offers me.
Unlike other cults, there isn't much documented physical or sexual abuse among its members, but of course there was mental manipulation and control that can be classified as emotional and mental abuse, which prevented members to use critical thinking and easily be controlled. Group members were often encouraged to publicly confess personal thoughts or failings in front of the entire group. This practice made members feel vulnerable and insecure, which reinforced obedience and loyalty through shame and guilt. Applewhite would sometimes harshly criticize or belittle members who displayed emotional attachment or any sort of independent thinking. All members were expected to give their personal wealth and assets to the cult that they joined. They would sell their homes, cash out life savings, and liquidate their assets. Social welfare and benefits would be given to the cult from its members, as well as any sort of disability pay they may have received. One of the group's most notable sources of income in the 90s came from their small business Higher Source, which offered web design services. The company was formed as the internet started to expand, and several members had the skills that allowed them to capitalize on the early tech boom. They designed and maintained websites for the businesses, including high-profile clients, which generated a decent amount of income for the group. Now in the 90s, Applewhite became convinced a significant event was coming, which would allow his followers to ascend to the next level. In 1995, news spread around the world about Hale-Bopp, which became one of the most visible comets in decades. Applewhite was convinced that a spaceship was coming, hiding behind the comet to transport them to the next level. He believed that leaving their bodies through death, their souls could board the spaceship. The cult believed that their time had finally come and that they would escape the impending doom they believed was coming to Earth. This unfortunately would lead to a story that would shock America, the mass suicide of the Heaven's Gate. After years of isolation, indoctrination, and emotional manipulation, members were conditioned to feel that suicide was the only logical and righteous conclusion. But before all that, there was a lot of prep that had to be done. Members recorded farewell videos expressing their pure excitement on leaving Earth. In March 1997, police entered a mansion in Rancho Santa Fe in San Diego, California, discovering the 39 victims of mass suicide, 21 of which were women and 18 men. They were all found lying peacefully in matching dark clothes and Nike sneakers and had no noticeable signs of blood or trauma. They consumed a lethal mixture of a sedative with vodka and then placed plastic bags over their heads to induce asphyxiation. They committed suicide in shifts. Those who died first were assisted by the others, who then cleaned up the bodies, covered them in purple shrouds, and prepared themselves for the next round. Applewhite was one of the last to die, with 2 assistants taking their own lives after tending to the bodies of their fellow members. The group's tragic end is often compared to that of the likes of the Jim Jones massacre that I've covered on this channel before, which also ended in mass suicide. However, Gates' unique blend of UFO mythology and Christian-inspired beliefs stands out as a particularly strange and haunting example of how religious indoctrination and isolation can lead to catastrophic outcomes. It's the first cult I've come across that uses a mix of Christian beliefs and science fiction, and it's a stark reminder to all of us how weaponized religion with charismatic leaders and the power of belief can easily influence others. The other thing that's quite unique about this one is, if you wanted to give it in some good light, if that's possible, is that there wasn't any example of any sort of child sexual abuse or child abuse in general, any sort of physical abuse, which is very, very common with the other ones, especially the lack of this sexualization of the members. And like usually with other cults, like, you know, the leaders have multiple wives. In this case, this dude wasn't interested in any of that. You can't even say like leaders were looking for loads of wealth, like what you'd see with a lot of other cult leaders. That's kind of what makes it kind of a very unique case compared to a lot of the other cases I've covered. At the end of the day, still has very similar tragic outcomes, still uses religion, still uses charismatic leaders and manipulation and essentially gaslighting to control their members. So doesn't make it any better than the others, but it still makes it an interesting story nonetheless. But that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe as always if you enjoyed the video. I actually have a playlist of other cult religious videos that I've made, so I'll leave a link for that in the description down below, so check it out if you haven't seen it. But that's it guys, thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Peace out.